VAT is a big area and at times can be quite complicated. However, in Sage 50 Accounts, to produce your VAT return, there are just 3 simple steps. Let's take a look at them in the software. We'll start by opening the VAT ledger. In this example, we're just going to produce the VAT return for the next period, which will run from July through to the end of September. So we'll click VAT return at the top. The first task is to back up. Now, just to save time with this demonstration, we're not going to run through that, but it is the standard backup option that will be launched at this stage. Now, we would encourage you to back up at this stage, as the only way you can undo the VAT return if you do reconcile it is to restore the backup that you would take at this point. After you've backed up, you need to enter the relevant period for your VAT return. So in this example, we'll choose the 1st of July, and we'll set the end of the period to the end of September. In the VAT verification area, you can click Settings to amend the checks that are run automatically to analyse your transactions and check their accuracy. And you can switch these settings on or off. However, they will all be switched on by default, so we don't need to make any changes. And you're ready to click Calculate VAT Return. The software will then identify the transactions applicable to your VAT scheme that haven't been VAT reconciled, that fall within the date range that you've specified, and also it will look prior to the date range to see if there are any late entries. If any late entries are found, you'll be prompted, do you want to include these? Now it will list them, and you can obviously print that list or send it to Excel. Ordinarily, if it's just 1 or 2, you would just accept those and include them in the VAT return. This now takes us on to step 2, and as you can see, the VAT return figures on the right have now been calculated. However, before we come on to those, you'll see we've got 9 potential queries identified by the verification option. Let's have a quick look at the results. If any potential queries are identified for any of the specific checks, you'll be given a view option next to the check. Let's have a look at one of them. Remember that these are just potential queries. In this case, it's just a list of transactions not using our most commonly used tax code, which we've got set to T1. So because we've got some transactions using some tax codes other than T1, so we've got some T0 transactions, a T8 transaction, T2, T4, it identifies that as a possible verification issue. Nothing to worry about in this case. We can just click Close, and we close out of the verification results. We then return back to the VAT return, and as you'll see, the next option is to make adjustments. This option is used if you've been maybe informed by HMRC or your accountant that you need to manually adjust your VAT return. For the vast majority, you may never ever use this option. So we'll just skip that option and move on to reports. Now, with regard to reports and analysing your figures, there are a number of ways you can do this. The first option is to print your VAT reports. There are a number of VAT return reports available, the VAT return, the summary, detailed. There's also adjustments, which is greyed out because we haven't made any manual adjustments, and also an earlier unreconciled transactions report. That's available as we did include those 2 transactions earlier. You've got the standard output options, printer, preview, file and email. If we wanted to send one to the printer, we'll just select that one, click Run. We'll accept the print options, and we'll then return to the VAT return. Printing reports is one way of analysing return, and probably you will print out the VAT return, which includes boxes 1 to 9. However, you can also analyse your VAT return on screen, and you do that by clicking the values on the VAT return on the right hand side. Let's click on box 6. This drills down to what we term level 1. So this gives us a breakdown of the transaction types and tax code values that make up the figure in box 6 in this example. Now we can drill down further. All we need to do is highlight a value, so let's take sales credits at T1. So we highlight it and then double click it. And this takes us to what we would term drill down level 2, so it provides a list of the transactions that make up that value. So sales credits at T1, we've got our list of 4 transactions in this example. We can print that list if we want to. In this example, we'll just click Close. We'll click Close again, back to the VAT return window. So that's a great option if you're just wondering where your figures have come from, why they're so high, so low, or just in general you want a better understanding of how the VAT return calculates. Use the drill down to give you that level of detail. Once you've agreed your figures, you're ready to reconcile your VAT return. You'll be prompted to flag your transactions as being VAT reconciled, and you should click yes to this prompt. Once the transactions have been flagged, you'll be taken on to step 3. There are 3 tasks involved on step 3 down the right hand side. The first is to complete the VAT transfer. This is completed automatically for you with the dates and the values, and all you need to do, literally one click, and that's it done. The second option is to submit your VAT return to HMRC, and you'll do that online just by clicking the button. If you normally submit your VAT return online by logging onto the government gateway and manually entering your figures, this can be a big time saver. The internet submissions option appears, prompts us that we're about to submit our VAT return to the government gateway. Do we want to continue? So we click continue at the bottom. You're prompted to check your details, and if these are correct, you click submit. The software will then try and submit your VAT return to HMRC. If the gateway is busy, the software waits for a few seconds, and then retries the submission. And that's it done. The submission has been successful. If we want to, we can click the little link to view the submission log. This can be printed, or you can just read the information on screen. One good point to note is the date it mentions if you're set up by direct debit, and that refers to the date that the money will be taken out of the bank account. We can then record the payment or the refund directly from within the VAT return itself. Now, all we need to do is enter the bank account that the money will be paid into or out of, specify the date, so that's the date that we've just looked at on the submission log, which in our example was the 5th of November. We'll just accept the other details and click Post Bank Payment. And that's the VAT return process complete. We can just click Close. When you return to the VAT return window, you'll see a VAT Return Archive has been added to the list. Now, if you need to reprint reports or just check your figures again, you can do that by double-clicking the VAT return on the list. As you can see, while VAT can be a complicated area, the steps to produce your VAT return in Sage 50 accounts are very straightforward.